Hey guys, I'm Rye Ludwig with Midwest Whitetail. Today I'm going to take some time to talk to you about fencing your food plots. Really, there's one reason that we want to fence our food plots, or tree plantings, or maybe it's an orchard. It's browse pressure and keeping the wildlife out. So when we look at that, there's a lot of different options for fencing types, availability, and really a lot of different price points that you can find. The fences I primarily have experience with are what's called 3D deer fences, and there's a number of reasons I think that's the best. Deer have lower depth perception than most, so the 3D fence acts as an obstacle that they view that they can't get over. And there's also the different availability of wire strands that go with that, black. There's also blue, and there's a lot of reading that says deer see the color blue very well. No matter what size food plot you're doing, there's a fencing option for you. Whether it's a small green plot with a heavy deer density, it's just somewhere you want to bow hunt over, multiple ag fields across a large farm that you're trying to have food for late season to keep the health of your deer herd and get them all the way through winter, you can put a fence up around that. So obviously it's labor intensive, there's a lot that goes into it, but I'm just going to walk you kind of through the process on how to put up a fence and maybe on selecting what is best for you. Along with that, some people do 5-strand wires, which is 5 wires that are straight up high and energized that way. There's nothing wrong with that. I know a lot of guys that do that and have success with it. I personally just lean towards a 3D fence, and that's what I'm going to kind of hit on as we go through this. It's what I'm familiar with and what I know works. Essentially with this fence, you have 2 inside wires and 1 outside wire. The inside is going to have 1 high wire and 1 low wire. Low wire is about 18 inches off the ground. The high wire is about chest height on me. And then the outside wire is basically going to split those two. And that goes back to that 3D object. The deer essentially is seeing an object that's in front of them, and that deters them from trying to go through. Along with that, there's a shock, obviously, with an energizer. So as far as the setup goes, you start with your T-post. So you'll mark out the corners of your fence or any turns in your fence. So one thing I'll say that I've noticed is the straighter that you have your fence, the more successful it'll be. But once you've got all your turns and your corners marked out and you have your T-post set, there'll be 1 T-post on the outside, 1 T-post on the inside. You'll put T-post insulators on those. There'll be 2 on the inside, 1 on the outside for rewire, and then you'll be set and ready to go. Now, there's a couple different ways you can do the next step about putting up your wire. So recently, I've started to do it where I lay my wire first, and then I will come back and put my fiberglass rods in the ground. In the past, I have put the fiberglass rods in the ground and then put the wire out. Now, the problem with that is if you run your wire first, then you can pull it tight from T-post to T-post and get a straight line on where your fiberglass posts are going to be. If you don't do that, you're just kind of guessing, and you can kind of get some fluctuation, and any kind of bend you have in your fence is considered a weakness, right? So any low spots, any high spots, places that the deer can take advantage of, they have a knack for figuring out how to get into them. You really have to stay on top of it through the year and just make sure nothing's getting in. As far as running the wire goes, recently this year I've just started to do it off the truck or off the back of a Polaris. You can run pretty much all 3 wires at the same time and run out your outside periphery and get your fence laid out. Then I'll come through with my fiberglass posts, put them in the ground, and they'll have an insulator on them for the wire. Generally after that, take a walk around, make sure all my wire's good, get my heights right on where I want the wire to be. Again, 18 inches on the bottom, about chest height on the top wire, and the outside wire is gonna split those 2. And one thing to think about along with this is variations of topography, undulations in the land. You just wanna make sure that your fence is consistently the same height above the ground everywhere, depending on how low. If it's a low spot and your fence spans across it, you're gonna have to lower your wire. If you don't, then deer will be able to get underneath and split the next 2 wires, and kind of defeats the purpose of the 3D objective. Once you've got all that done, you're set and ready to tension your fence. So basically every T-post, I'll pull it. You can do it by yourself. It's a little more difficult. Definitely would recommend doing it with somebody else. In fact, in fencing in general, if you got friends, call them. It's not a fun job. It's not glorious. And generally the time of year you're doing it, it's really hot out. So more hands makes less work, and always keep that in mind. But with tensioning, if you're doing it by yourself, I like to use a set of vice grips where I'll pull tension to 1 T-post from the beginning. I'll put a set of vice grips there, hold the tension, pull the slack out on the next one, use another set of vice grips, so on and so forth as I go throughout the plot. And what that does is just ensures you keep your fence tight. A tight fence is a good fence, right? So if you have low spots in them, the deer are going to try and jump them. It looks like a weakness. Again, if you see something with your fence that looks like a weakness, the deer are naturally going to think that too, and they're going to try and cross there. 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to get into the plot. There's a lot of different materials that go into this. So your fences will have your normal rope handles if you want gates, and what those are spring loaded. You can pull the spring loaded portion and have a gate where you can take the fence down and then hook it back up. You'll have non-conductive insulators on one side that'll be the end of your fence, and then the plastic insulators on your T-posts and your flex posts. So at this point, you're ready to energize your fence. Whatever energizer you select, you want to make sure, I personally go around 8,000 kilohertz. That's kind of like cattle grade fence, and deer are stubborn. Cattle grade is the way to go. So you'll hook that up, have a ground wire, and then run your electric from to the outside, and then one to the low, and then one from the low to the high, and that makes that chain to go to all three. Use a fence tester and test all sides of the fence. That's going to be your gate side, which would be your end side, and then also your beginning side. I like to test them all just to make sure there's no wire that's not getting anything. Sometimes wires will get frayed. You may miss it when you're putting it out, and it'll cause a wire to not be hot from the point that it's frayed all the way back. So maybe the conductor, which there's little metal wires inside of that that'll conduct electricity, maybe one of them's broke and it's not conducting that electricity anymore. So always keep an eye out for that. And after that, it's just maintenance. You know, I personally tend to spray my fences when I'm spraying the plots. You know, I recommend keeping that fence line as clean as possible. Something I do at the beginning of the year is mow my fence lines and make sure they're as clean as possible. I'll spray them with my Roundup 2,4-D and my pre-emergent early in the year and give myself kind of a head start moving through there to get myself ahead of the weeds that'll grow in the spring. All in all, fences can be a game changer when it comes to late season food sources or any kind of food source. It can be the difference between having food to pull a deer and not having food and having a slow hunt. So if you guys are having problems with browse pressure in your plots, or maybe you have a tree planting you want to keep deer out of or something like that, don't be afraid to check out these electric fences. They work great. Minor upkeep. Once you get them up, you can leave them up and just keep them maintained. And they can be a real game changer when it comes to hunting season. So I hope some of these tips have helped you guys out. If you're looking at electric fence, it's always a great option. We do a lot of it, and it's a lot of work, but it is rewarding at the end. So thank you guys for watching. We'll catch up with you later.